Barangaroo was one of the powerful figures in Sydney's early history. She was from the country around North Harbour and Manly. Her Camaragal clan was the largest and most influential in the Sydney coastal region. Barangaroo was very likely present at the first meeting that took place between white newcomers and the Camaragal women at Manly in February 1788, an event captured in William Bradley's watercolour. These early meetings had much to do with gender. Were Aboriginal women available? And were these shaven, fully clothed white people men or women? On command, a sailor would drop his pants and a great cry would go up, "They are men!" Thereafter, the women were kept well away. The officers finally met Barangaroo in mid-September 1790. They found her very striking, but also a little frightening. By then the world had been changed by smallpox. Barangaroo had survived but lost a husband and 2 children, and now she had a new younger husband, the ambitious Bennelong. They estimated her aged about 40. The meeting took place when Governor Phillip, having quickly recovered after being speared at Manly, went by boat to meet Bennelong at his camp opposite Sydney Cove. Bennelong is in the front canoe, raising his paddle in the right hand and turning towards the Governor's approaching boat. Barangaroo is in the second canoe. This is the only known image of her. On shore, Bennelong received a metal hatchet, fishing lines and a red jacket, while Barangaroo was offered a petticoat and other gifts. She resisted Bennelong's urgings to come nearer the men, but Burong coaxed her forward by putting the petticoat on her. The men laughed at her modesty, Bennelong included, at which Barangaroo, humiliated, dropped the outlandish garment to stand naked before them, furious and glowering. Thereafter she refused all clothing, wearing at most a slim bone in her septum. In October 1790, Bennelong and some friends came in peacefully to Sydney, but Barangaroo was so unhappy about him consorting with the whites, she broke his fishing spear. Barangaroo and Bennelong were both determined and short-tempered. When he hit her, she hit him back, sometimes with a club. The officers were perplexed at how a couple who so clearly delighted in one another's company could be so violent to each other. Watkin Tench said she deserved her beatings because she was a scold and a vixen, and nobody pitied her. Why was Barangaroo trying to stop Bennelong's politicking and movements? Was she just a difficult woman? Grace Karskens thinks the answer may lie in fishing. Barangaroo was a fisherwoman. Eora women like her were the main food providers for their families, and the staple food of the coastal people around Sydney was fish. Unlike men, who stood motionless on the shore to spearfish with multi-pronged spears, women fished from their bark canoes, their naui, with lines and hooks. They made fishing lines by twisting together 2 strands of bark or fibre, and they honed the distinctive crescent-shaped fish hooks, burra, from the broadest part of the turban shell. These hooks were beautiful, and the lines well made. The women skimmed the waters in their simple bark canoes with fires lit on clay pads for warmth and cooking. The officers wondered how they could manage these contemptible skiffs, as they called them, with fishing tackle, on-board fire, small children and babies at the breast, sometimes in surf that would terrify their toughest sailors. The women sang together as they fished and kept time with their paddles as they rowed. They were seen fishing all day, in all weathers and at night too. They dominated the waters of the harbours, coves and bays, and the coastlines in between. The men mostly only used canoes when they wanted to get from one cove to another. Women's control of the food supply was essential to their status, self-esteem and power in society. So what may have triggered Barangaroo's anger at that first meeting with the whites, petticoats aside, was a massive catch of 4,000 Australian salmon hauled up in 2 nets. 40 fish of 5 pounds each were sent over as a present to Bennelong's group, an extravagant, wasteful gift given from men to men. As an Eora Fisherwoman, winning fish one by one through skill and patience, Barangaroo may have felt insulted. For Bennelong, and perhaps for other men who wanted a stake and a future among the British at Sydney Cove, wives provided this precious possibility. They could give birth to babies in this place. The new generation would belong to the Sydney country and share its bounty, because they were born in it. In 1791, Bennelong announced Barangaroo to be pregnant and manoeuvred for the birth to be at Government House. Phillip demurred, suggesting the best place would be the hospital. It's doubtful Barangaroo was even consulted. But birth was women's business, and men had no right to interfere in any aspect of it. Perhaps Barangaroo said as much, for Bennelong beat her again, badly, on the morning of the birth, but she defied him one more time. She gave birth alone, in a secluded place somewhere in the bush nearby, to a daughter named Dilbong, the bellbird. Barangaroo died not long after, baby at breast. She was cremated, her fishing gear beside her, in a small ceremony. Bennelong carefully gathered her ashes and buried them in the garden of Government House. He asked Philip to act as foster father to the child, and Philip found a wet nurse among the convict women. But while white babies were thriving, Dilbong died and was buried alongside her mother. Aboriginal women continued fishing the waters of Sydney Harbour at least until the late 1820s. 40 years after the first fleet, you could still see their canoes skimming the waves, little plumes of smoke rising from their onboard fires. We celebrate our harbours and coastlines in poetry, prose and art, and in sculptures by the sea. But where in Sydney Harbour, in our paradise of waters, are the great Eora fisherwomen remembered?